7.3 Remove watch and necklace from photo. Hi, in this lecture, I will show you how to remove accessories from photos by using retouching tools. We will focus on the clone stamp tools to remove this watch, and we'll use the healing brush to remove most of her necklace from this image. So let's get started. I'll create a new layer pretty quickly, and I'll first illustrate the difference between the healing brush tool and the clone stamp tool. We just learned that healing brush tool samples from an area and then tries to apply those pixels to a new spot by blending them together. Let me get that healing brush tool from over here. This may be great for certain scenarios. For example, here for her necklace, I could use it with ease. I'll sample a similar color region from this right side. Now I'll paint over this line pretty fast. As I sample, I will hold Alt button. As we approach the difficult part, it might give me some blotches, but if you insist on them, the healing brush will remove them. And that's because it tries to blend everything together with our surroundings. Let's also remove the top spot. I have to sample again somewhere to the right side. Great, it's progressing. And I will continue to paint in this fashion. And because I'm on a separate layer, I have complete freedom to remove some of my edits with the eraser tool. On the left side is where things start to get tricky and we begin to see this tool's limitations. As I try to remove these little details, blurry spurs start to appear. This is going to be the same story for some of the dark spots here and there, as well as for her shirt. In these cases, I'm not happy with it. Let's pause this task and switch tabs to work on another picture. Great. Here, I want to remove her watch. I'll sample a clear part of her skin. Just like this. And I'll start painting over it. You can see it doesn't look bright, and that's because Photoshop tries to blend these pixels together and keep some of those initial details. In this case, that's not what we want. So this is one clear case for this clone stamp tool. Let me step back and create a new layer for it. Just like this. Now, I will name it as clone stamp watch. Let me grab the clone stamp tool from over here. Okay, this relies on a brush as well, so we can quickly adjust our size and hardness. Besides that, it has the same align feature. But in this case, I strongly suggest you leave it checked. Okay, we'll use it non-destructively by working on a new layer. Thus, the sample mode from the options bar has to be set at current and below. Here's how this tool works. Where the healing brush tool tries to blend pixels together, the clone stamp tool just pastes them in. It works by setting a source point. In this case, I'll sample a random part of her arm just to show you how this works. And what's great is that we get this preview that's showing us what we're about to paint. Now, I'll position it somewhere over the bracelet of the watch. Mind you, this is exactly what we're going to get. There won't be any blending or pixel matching of any kind. Okay, I'll click a few times and you can see how the watch slowly starts to fade away. As I move inwards, so does my other mouse cursor because I'm using the align feature. If it isn't checked already, let me check it. Okay, I have it checked there. Moving on, this means I'm now matching the watch region with her own skin, and because these shadows follow the same line, I'm getting a pretty good result. Just to reiterate the difference, if we create a new layer like this and focus on her face, we'll see she has some spots. So we want to get rid of them with the clone stamp tool. I'll sample somewhere from the left side, just like this. Now I'll paint over these two guys, but look what happens. Because we have a bit of shadow on that region, that perfectly translates here. So the clone stamp tool, as its name suggests, that it produces perfect pixel replicas. Let me undo this process a couple of times and focus back on her watch. Here, it's a process that takes a bit of time and constantly resetting your source point. I suggest you keep it on a click-by-click basis, though you can click and drag if you are very confident in your results. The watch slowly goes away, and because I'm using her own skin, I don't have to worry about losing any texture or making it look fake. What's essential is you constantly follow the natural lines of your subject. Here in this case, her hand, and I'm trying to keep my source point on the same imaginary line in order to keep the shadows. On the edges, you'll see I'm going to have some problems because her hand isn't perfectly straight. But that's not going to be a problem because I'm working on a different layer. That means I can further adjust these edges with a number of tools. Here, I'll use free transform by hitting Ctrl T. Now I'll right click that part and I'll switch to warp, which is under the perspective. Now, with the help of this grid, I can nudge things back into place. So her natural line is going to be left intact. If you hurry along, you might not get a perfect result. But I would say if you spend about 15 minutes on this watch alone, you should get a nice blend. In the end, it's a matter of going back and forth and adjusting your clone stamp layer. I found a softer brush does a better job, but you can always right click and adjust it on the spot. Another piece of advice that might sometimes help you out is creating another empty layer for another region of your subject. So once the right side is buttoned up, you might want to switch layers for the left side. And as you work, you'll constantly resort to any myriad of tools you have learned up until this point. I'm going over it pretty fast because we still have that necklace to attend to in another tab. If some spots are particularly tricky, switch to the healing brush tool and see if that can help you out. Unless it's a challenge, you have to make your life easier, not harder. Okay, let me wrap up this watch so that we can apply the same techniques for another project. In the end, this is how her arm looks without the watch. Let me show you the progress by going over this eye icon of the new layer, the before and now the after. Brilliant. Now let's get back to the necklace. I'll switch to the clone stamp tool and I'll focus on this left side. Let me grab a new layer and label it as clone stamp necklace. Okay, back to it. I'll sample her shirt and I'll click a few times. You have to make sure you are lining up this crease. This is a pretty tricky area, especially on her skin, because we have this gap between it and the shirt. No matter, I'll adjust my brush size, and here it might be a good idea to adjust your hardness as well. Honestly, there's no one tip of advice I can give you other than try your best, and in case it doesn't work out, either undo with Ctrl Z or remove your correction with your eraser tool. I won't give you any longer, so that's why I'm speeding through it pretty fast. I think you get the approach. In the end, I'll sum it up by saying that Healing Brush tool is great when you want to blend pixels together and make them match the surrounding area. The Clone Stamp tool is perfect when you need to add pixels without any other interference from Photoshop, and it's my go-to option when it comes down to remove people or say objects. Okay, this wraps it up. Let me show you the initial shirt. This is our starting point, and now here's the after shirt, where we have used the Healing Brush and the Clone Stamp tool. No necklace, no watch. I hope you have found this example useful. Now it's your turn, so please download the images and start working. Have fun, and as always, stay creative.